Good afternoon. Welcome to everyone in the Better Bones community. This is Dr. Susan Brown, Director of the Center for Better Bones. And you know, I've been talking a lot about exercise. I keep reminding you that when we build muscle mass, we build bone, and one of the best ways to strengthen our bone is through exercise. Now, thinking about exercise, you might be wondering, and I certainly was wondering, does it make any difference when we have our meals around our exercise? And I have today a very interesting research report from a professor at the University of Michigan, which happens to be my alma mater. And this was Katrina Borer. And what she did is she worked with women. Now, these women were women who had diabetes, but I think the results would pertain to everyone. And she said, let's look at the bone building markers, the markers that were actually building bone and the markers that were halting bone breakdown, and see if that's affected by when we eat. And she discovered a couple things. One, she discovered that the best way to load the bone and build bone is indeed walking downhill. What we talk about is walking down the steps, you know, that heavy impact. It's much better to build bone than walking up the steps. Although walking up the steps helps you build muscle, it's walking down that has that impact. That's why we like hopping, jumping, skipping. So she said the best exercise was walking downhill. She used an experiment with walking downhill. And the time of eating, interestingly enough, she found that it was important to eat the meal before you exercised in order to see the stimulation of the bone building cells. I have often thought that probably the best thing to do is to have some food before we exercise, and she really verifies that. That's very important. And I like to have a little protein before I exercise and then a little protein afterward. But what's really clear in her case is that the people who ate after exercise, like went to their exercise fasting without eating, they did not have a stimulus. There were no markers that they were building bone. So I thought that was really interesting. It's easy enough. All of us eat something, at least a substantial amount of food before we go exercise, and I personally like to have some little protein after I exercise. So remember, exercise is important. We need every single nutrient to be able to build that new tissue, and if we eat before our meal, we're going to give ourselves a little head start. We're going to allow those bone building cells to be fresh and nourished and get right to work as we do that exercise. Okay, it's great talking to you. I'll talk to you all soon.